Before he passed away, my 60-year-old spouse and I, a female of 55, were wed for 20 years. It was cancerous. When he married me, his 2 children from a previous marriage were in their early teens. In a previous relationship, I also had a pre-tween. We had no more children. I made an effort to love my stepchildren as if they were my own, but they never did. They constantly made fun of me and were impolite. They labeled me a gold digger who married their dad for his money because I didn't work. Being well off, my grandparents left me a sizable inheritance when they passed away. Living substantially below my means, I decided to raise my daughter at home since I could afford to do so. Not only did I not need his money at all, but I also told him not to share this with his children. I wasn't interested in their approval merely for financial gain. However, my spouse detested the way they handled me. He refused to cover their tuition for college because of their obvious disdain. They had to take out loans because their mom was unable to pay for it. Even when he was diagnosed with cancer, they remained silent. For 3 years, they refused to visit him. We found the treatment to be difficult. Occasionally, my daughter would come visit us when she could. The only person who truly assisted us throughout this period was a stranger, a late 20th century girl who worked as a waiter at the cafe we frequently visited. She worked throughout the day, raised her 2 children, and attended community college at night as a single mother. She became fond of us and, upon discovering my husband's illness, she made every effort to spend time with him. She was the only daughter we hoped for, and she had spent nights in the hospital when I needed a break. She helped me plan the funeral when he passed away. When his children arrived that day, their only question was regarding their inheritance. When I discovered that I was the beneficiary of my husband's estate, roughly $225,000, after his bills were paid, I became ill. The cost of his care and treatment was high. I made the decision to donate it to the girl who was so kind to us. She attempted to decline, but I persuaded her to accept it. She was in far more need of it than his ungrateful children, and she certainly deserved it. My daughter is disappointed that I didn't give her anything, but she can understand why I didn't give it to his kids. I informed her that she would receive my inheritance in addition to having money and a job already. This was his money, not hers in the slightest. My ex-wife and children are really furious with me and are generating chaos about this. They're calling me a moron for parting with money they rightfully own. Is it my fault that I gave a stranger my late husband's estate rather than his children? Edit. A liaison was not had. We had never met before. He was the best friend of my friend's brother. We used to run into each other at their parties and other events. 2 years following his divorce, we began dating. Not the fool. To begin with, a $25,000 estate is not large. People don't usually argue or question about an estate size. Surprisingly, given your husband's $25,000 total net worth, your child and your stepchildren were hoping for a windfall. Was it their understanding that your husband was wealthy? Your spouse would have left his estate to his children or to your children if that is what he had intended. However, he wanted you to have it, and you have every right and moral obligation to give it to someone who has impacted your life and could find it life-changing. You would be shocked at how many arguments arise over money, even when the sum is less than $25,000. Though sad, it's the truth. The family of a distant friend is one particularly notable case. A $500 donation has 4 beneficiaries battling over it. They ended up fighting over a total of $125. The legal fees they incurred in the legal battle were higher. I will remember all of this pettiness for a very long time. I apologize for your loss. That waitress seemed to be more family by choice than those horrible stepchildren were by blood. They seem to have been the real gold diggers. I'm not on board. You and your spouse, in my opinion, did a poor job of integrating families, and you then held his children responsible for their rejection. It's likely that they heard what they heard elsewhere, and neither he nor you changed the situation. He speaks of their connection as being quite transactional. They withdrew after he became enraged and refused to pay for college. Although she argues that she should have received his money, your portrayal of his children as avaricious but not viewing your own daughter in the same light paints a bad picture of your attitude towards them. I'm not suggesting he should have disregarded it. Therefore, it's not immoral for you to give money to the young woman who helped you both. After all, you and your spouse are the ones who created this dysfunctional family dynamic in the first place. Yes, I could have dispelled a plausible but narrow-minded notion my stepkids had about me when they were still in high school, but I chose not to, which caused my husband and his kids to lose their connection. But as if that wasn't enough, years after his passing, I received even more small-scale retaliation. I mean, am I not cute? No, the fool is you. You were the adult, and others were children to young adults. There are 1,000 ways you could have handled this better than being a tawdry, dumb, store owner Cersei Lannister. Horrible. Kelly, our teenage daughter, is shared by my former partner and me. When we parted ways, she was 3. We have a 2 yes, 1 no policy and a court order requiring us to split the cost of her education until she graduates from high school. We took this action because, aside from the fact that it is a significant financial commitment, we had always planned for her to attend a private school. Kelly attended a STEM-focused private school. She has been attending since kindergarten as it is a K-12 school. She adores it. The main problem has been that there are no buses and the drive takes 45 minutes. We have made an effort to locate carpool opportunities, but the only other student from the nearby school relocated a few years ago. No family members around to offer assistance. We've attempted to hire a driver for her, but they needed to be more trustworthy. Nevertheless, the cost has been justified. It is important to remember that Kelly spends the week living with me and spends the weekends with her dad. She is brought to and from school by me. I got remarried last year. 2 children were introduced into our marriage by my spouse. Both of them attend a local private school and are in their teens. The same problem with no busing. They also don't possess cars because we are unable to pay for them. My spouse is the only parent they have because he is a widower. I am responsible for sending the kids to school every day because he starts work at 6 a.m. It's been a nightmare trying to get everyone there on time. The private school where my stepchildren attend does not offer before or after-school programs, and it begins after Kelly's. Getting her there and back to their school is a tight fit. My spouse and I debated for a long time before deciding that Kelly would benefit most from starting her step-sibling school. My ex was really hesitant when we brought it up to him, but he said he would support Kelly if she wanted it. Kelly is against it. There is not a STEM program at this school. She is unwilling to part from her pals. I explained that it's because it's more than my husband can afford when she questioned why her step-siblings didn't have to move to her school. I contribute, but I'm not able to cover the 2.5 tuition. They don't like science or STEM, which the school focuses a lot on, and I pay the other half for hers. Kelly is not going. I've tried approaching her, offering her money, etc. She is not giving up. Thus, her father isn't either. I've even tried to come to an agreement that it should only last till her step-siblings graduate because it's annoying. 2 calendar years. She said, then I can easily put up with this for 2 years. She has since moved in with her dad and has made it clear that she won't be returning until I resolve the issue. She refused to talk when I asked to talk about it further. Am I the foolish one? It's you who is the fool. If she wanted to, your ex-husband stated he would consent. He doesn't agree because she doesn't. 1 no, 2 yes. Recall that he voted against it because she refuses to let go of it and move on. Now the question is, before you were married and took over, how on earth did your spouse manage to get his teenagers to school? He understood it all. My husband and I talked it over and ultimately agreed that Kelly would be better off starting at her step-sibling school. Oh no, no, no. No, you didn't. You determined that was what was best for you. Your daughter is not wrong. Why is everything she has to give up? Obtain a used automobile and school permits for the older children so they can drive themselves to school. This is 100% true. You can afford to employ a driver and send 3 children to private school, but not to buy automobiles for the teenagers. That is absurd. Give them the same cheap, crappy cars that most teenagers obtain, and advise them to save money so they can, too, become car owners. Perhaps you could move her in with her dad during the week and have her live with you on the weekends to facilitate school transportation, or you could get her a better, more dependable driver. However, she ought to remain at her current school. Why should she be treated unfairly? She should come first because she is your biological daughter, and it is inconvenient for you and your new family. You should not be concerned if your spouse is unable to pay for his child's school expenses. This wealthy, childless aunt seemed to me to be an exaggerated caricature made fun of on TikToks and for revolves. However, as a 41-year-old woman, I've observed that my family is treating me like that more and more, and I'm not sure how to react to it. Even when something has to do with my partner and we are never in the spotlight. My brother had children, so he arrived late to the engagement celebration. I was chastised for being impolite when I arrived 20 minutes late for one of the children's birthday celebrations because I had work. We are not as important as the kids, so our wedding won't be child-free. Recall that all of them, even the ones with kids, had child-free weddings because on their special day they required a vacation from parenthood. Since we are childless, we are always expected to watch kids at all times, so we really can't complain. Every day, without any sense or purpose, people ask me, "What are you doing with your life?" If I respond, I don't want to. Every youngster has a wish list, and we are always expected to purchase the most expensive item. Even though my spouse and I are well off, we frequently hear that our actual expenses aren't as high as theirs. Since they would receive my belongings from me nonetheless, my nieces already think that my jewelry and fancy items are theirs. Am I making too much of it? That's coming from both sides of the family, not just one or the other. My 2 siblings and the 3 siblings of my partner. I get the impression that they do not view me as equally worthy. My life has less significance now. It's beginning to irritate me. Since parents are solely supposed to care for their children, I feel as though I have a greater responsibility than any other parent I know. I've discussed similar emotions with my boyfriend, particularly during our engagement celebration, to which everyone could relate, but who didn't even seem to care about us. I informed him that I no longer wished to be the wealthy kid. He understood me even though he didn't share my revulsion. If I stopped this, would I be the idiot? I have no children for a purpose. I believe that kids are quite demanding, not related to love. I adore my nieces and nephews dearly. That's not what I want to do. My existence shouldn't revolve around them. My wedding should not be about them. And I don't want them to be the reason for my demise. I've always worked for charity, and that's how I want to leave everything. I informed my boyfriend he may leave his money to the family, even though he was deeply offended by my choice. Furthermore, I denied pressuring him to make a donation. I'm the one with the true wealth, so he's really furious. Not the fool. Although it seems like you've ignored this for far too long, there is still time to make changes. Follow your advice to the letter. Choose not to take care of children, have a child-free wedding, and distribute your riches as you see fit. You own it. In the process, get a prenuptial agreement. Merely my 2 cents. You should speak with your relatives, darling. Find out whether they disagree with your decision to forego having children. It's time to put an end to this passive-aggressive behavior, which is just hostile. LOL. Have you thought about relocating farther away? That would eliminate 90% of the harassment. My surgery was performed 4 years ago. When my mother learned, she informed everyone. They all assumed that I would change my mind before then or that I had health issues that would prevent me from getting pregnant. My mother hasn't spoken to me since that day, and I suppose that because of this, people began to view me as nothing more than a free babysitter and ATM. I constantly hear people say that my existence is useless and worthless, especially when they require a babysitter. I frequently dream of moving away, but my partner isn't into it. Hollow and without meaning. That really is very impolite. Simply put, you should cut these people out of your life. Really, cut them out for your own benefit. They only see worth in what you can do for them and what you can give them. Otherwise, you are being used. Give whatever you have to any charity of your choice, stop babysitting, and get married without having children. Your family and nieces have no claim to any of your possessions if that's what you wish to do. I suggest avoiding leaving anything for them in your will, even if you may have considered it given how terribly they treat you. Reward good behavior in no way. To what extent do you think your spouse isn't hoping in private that you'll also have an epiphany over having children? It is disturbing that he is unwilling to let go of this BS, is offended that you want to give all of your money to charity, and does not defend you. Though I'm always prepared for the worst, Would he really go so far as to interfere with your birth control? His nieces are probably the ones that see your belongings with avaricious goblin eyes, as he appears to be a rapacious goblin. We've been married for 18 months, and I'm a 28-year-old woman expecting our first kid. My spouse and I spoke about having kids and even naming them when we initially started dating. Both of us desired children and believed that children should have their own names rather than honor or inherited family names. One was my spouse. It's somewhat of a custom, and he told me it was difficult at times, but it also meant that the name of what seemed like a very old guy was frequently passed down through the family without ever having a chance to die. When we got engaged, we talked about everything in greater detail. If we had a son, we had decided to stand united and refuse to give him the expected family name. My husband has changed his mind, and we find ourselves in the very situation we had discussed. Arthur is the name in dispute. The name has become much more well-known in the past several years, and I'm concerned that my husband has given in to the customary pressure and agreed that we should continue the tradition. This fact really bothers me, and my spouse and I have been at odds over the name for almost 3 months. I still don't even like it, but I still think kids should have their own names. It hurts because he broke our pledge. On Saturday, we attended a sister's daughter's 3rd birthday celebration at her home. Some family members, mainly his mother, brother, and grandfather, advised us to reveal baby Arthur's name while we were there. Arthur would not be the name I gave my son, I informed them. My spouse promised to find a way to persuade me that we still needed to chat more about that. His mother interrupted to say that she trusted them more than my parents, who wanted to give me the trendy, manly name Riley. She was impolite, I informed her, and she had no business insulting my parents. My mum was over the line, my husband informed her. She declared that she was reporting it as she saw it. Furthermore, she asserted that my parents' greater problem with middle names demonstrated their self-centeredness and disregard for my brothers and myself. She stopped when my husband ordered her to stop, but he brought it up again. I told him I would not be forced to give our son a name we had repeatedly decided against. His family then became engaged once more and advised me not to wish to deprive my son of the opportunity to carry on the family name. They also advised me that deciding on his name all by myself wasn't fair. They should mind their own effing business, I told them. And because kids were nearby, I did utter effing, but that was just between my spouse and me. They told me I should have apologized and left because they were startled by the way I had spoken to them. They want their fucking apologies still. Am I the foolish one? Not to be the moron, but you and your spouse need to find a way to get through this. Your ILS are like 10 pounds of garbage in a 5-pound bag. However, you can disregard them. However, you must cohabitate with your spouse. You have every right to be upset and furious since he was betrayed, and you are not at all at fault. However, you might want to consider getting some brief counseling and using a third-party mediator who is impartial. Furthermore, your spouse is not entitled to give your child only his last name. Remember it as well. In reality, the child adopts the mother's last name. The mother had already adopted her father's last name, and the parents were traditionally married. The father-in-law, my husband, and my son all share the same last and first names. Everything about it is a nightmare, even the ordinary mail and loan applications. It's a circus. Avoid doing it. Make sure you instruct your L&D nurse to provide you with the birth certificate documents only. He may attempt to conceal them from you.